Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Our first story today takes us to a Tractor Supply where one woman decided to argue with basic chicken biology. After learning that her new chicks wouldn't start laying eggs for 8 or 9 months, she went full meltdown mode. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. When Karen meets biology. Not my story, but my daughter's, and honestly, I've been laughing about it all day. A few quick things to know about her first. She lives in a semi-rural area, she works in veterinary medicine, and she's been raising chickens for years. She's one of those people who actually knows what she's doing when it comes to animal care, and she's had her fair share of run-ins with folks who don't. Now, with a recent spike in egg prices, everyone and their cousin has suddenly decided they're going to live off the land and raise their own chickens. Tractor Supply and other farm stores have been overrun with first-time chicken owners, many of whom have absolutely no clue what goes into raising poultry. Lines wrap around the block the moment a new shipment of chicks arrives, and social media groups are full of people asking questions like, "Why aren't my chickens laying eggs yet?" when the poor birds are still practically babies. Anyway, my daughter needed to run a few errands and ended up stopping at Tractor Supply to pick up some supplies. While checking out, the clerk casually mentioned that they had just received an unexpected shipment of 40 chicks. Since my daughter's been raising hens for a while, she decided she'd grab a few more for her coop. "Sure," she told the clerk, "set aside 4 for me and I'll pay for them with the rest of my stuff." So far, everything was normal. Until she got to the register. There was a woman ahead of her, maybe mid-40s, perfectly coiffed hair, expensive sneakers, the type of person who looks like she came straight from complaining to a Starbucks barista about oat milk foam. Let's call her Karen. Karen was leaning over the counter with her arms crossed, looking impatient. The clerk was trying to help her, keeping his tone polite and steady. "Karen, I'd like to buy some chickens." Clerk, "Sure, how many would you like?" They worked out the quantity and the price while my daughter stood quietly behind her, waiting her turn. The chicks were right there, peeping softly under the heat lamps, so Karen could clearly see they were tiny balls of fluff, barely a couple months old. Then came the question that made my daughter nearly lose it. "Karen, so how soon do they start laying eggs? Like 2 or 3 weeks, right?" The poor clerk blinked at her, trying to process what she'd just said. Clerk, no ma'am, not for about 8 or 9 months. They're still young." You could almost hear the record scratch. Karen, "What? 8 or 9 months? That's ridiculous. I can't wait that long for eggs. That's unacceptable." The clerk, bless him, tried to stay professional. "That's just how long it takes for them to mature," he said. "They're still chicks." But Karen wasn't having it. "Well, that's your problem," she snapped. "You should have chickens that lay eggs sooner. This is false advertising." At this point, my daughter was biting her lip so hard not to laugh that she was probably bleeding. She said it was like watching someone argue with gravity. What exactly did this woman expect? That biology would bend itself around her grocery needs? Karen went on ranting for another minute or two, demanding that the store do something about the injustice of having to wait for eggs. The clerk just kept repeating that there was nothing anyone could do. That's how chickens work. Finally, Karen threw up her hands, muttered something about terrible customer service, and stormed out of the store yelling about how she'd take her business elsewhere. My daughter said the whole store went silent for a few seconds after she left, and then the clerk sighed and muttered, "Well, that's a first." When my daughter stepped up to the counter, she could barely keep a straight face as she said, "Don't worry, I'll take those 4 chicks, and I promise I won't demand eggs next week." They both cracked up. The clerk even joked, "Guess we can't rush Mother Nature, huh?" On her way out, my daughter said she was only disappointed about one thing. Karen didn't demand to speak to a manager first. She missed her chance for a full chicken meltdown. OP, I swear, this might be one of the funniest real-life examples of someone trying to file a customer service complaint against nature itself. Your daughter basically witnessed a live demonstration of instant gratification meets farm biology. This Karen would probably put a bucket under a calf and expect it to give milk. And our second story. Boss said to follow the rule book to the letter. I work in a medium-sized office with a very, let's say, meticulous manager. We have a company handbook that's easily 300 pages, and nobody's probably ever read it cover to cover. It has a lot of old and outdated rules, which we all ignore in favor of common sense. Last week, someone made a minor mistake that was against one of the obscure rules. Instead of addressing the specific issue, our boss decided to have a meeting. He proudly announced that from now on, we would follow the handbook rules to the absolute letter, no exceptions. Cue malicious compliance. 1. Break time overload. Our handbook says we're entitled to a 10-minute break for every hour worked. Instead of the usual 1-hour lunch and 2 15-minute breaks, we all started taking 8 separate 10-minute breaks throughout the day. Productivity plummeted. 2. Dress code chaos. Apparently there was a rule saying ties were mandatory, but it didn't specify for whom. The women in the office started wearing the most outrageous ties they could find. Neon, sequined, ties with cats on them, you name it. 3. Printer madness. The rulebook states every document should be printed in triplicate. The printers were constantly jamming and running out of paper. The office looked like a paper factory explosion. 4. Email explosion. There's a clause about CCing supervisors on every email. Our boss's inbox was flooded to the point of crashing. 5. Over-communication. A rule mentioned that any change, however minor, should be communicated to the entire team. Got a new pen? Sent an announcement. Moved your chair? Announcement. The constant pinging of email notifications became a hilarious office song. By the third day, our manager was at his wit's end. The entire office was barely functioning, and he knew he was the cause. On Friday, he called another meeting to announce that maybe we should use our best judgment and not rely solely on the handbook. The handbook is currently under revision. I'd call him not a bad leader, just a naive one. The kind who genuinely believes structure equals productivity until the structure collapses under the weight of 600 identical printouts and a dozen bedazzled ties. Maybe this experience was his corporate awakening, a rite of passage where he learned that rules look great on paper, but humans live off common sense. And our next story. This customer refused to believe their package isn't here yet. Working retail means you get used to strange customer interactions, but sometimes the sheer persistence or obliviousness of people just leaves you stunned. The other day I had one of those calls. The phone rings at my store and I answer like usual. On the other end is a customer looking for a package. Pretty standard, right? Customer: I had a package redirected to your store and wanted to see if it was there. Me: of course. What's your last name? He tells me. I put the phone down and I head over to the package shelf. I dig through every box, every envelope, just in case. Nothing with his name. I pick the phone back up. Me: I'm not seeing anything with that name. Could I get your tracking number, please? He rattles it off. I punch it into the system, and sure enough, I see the issue immediately. He literally just put in the request to have the package redirected to my store today. Me: it's not here yet. It shows you asked to have it redirected today, but it takes about 2 business days for that to process. Unfortunately, it's not giving me an estimated delivery date yet, so I can't tell you when to expect it. Customer: the lady on the phone said it would be there Monday. Can I get it today? Now, keep in mind this call is happening on Saturday, and I've just explained the timeline. Still, I take a breath. Me: unfortunately not. It's not here, and since it's not giving me a delivery date, I can't even guess when it'll arrive. Customer: so what can I do to get it today? At this point, I'm starting to wonder if I'm being pranked. Me: nothing. There's no possible way that I know of to get it today. I can give you the 1-800 number to call, along with which menu option gets you a person. They might be able to help, but they're closed now. You'd have to call Monday. Customer: where's my package? Me: probably on a truck in the city somewhere. Customer: so how do I get it today? My eye twitches. Me: as far as I know, you don't. If you enter the tracking number on the website, you'll be able to see when it arrives. There's a long pause. Customer: so it'll be there Monday? Me: I don't know. It's not showing a delivery date, so I can't tell you when it'll arrive. Another pause. Customer: okay, I'll call back Monday. Me: all right. Anything else I can help you with today? Customer, after another long pause: no, that's everything. Me: all right, have a good day. Click. I hung up before he could ask if he could pick it up today for a third time. Some people just forget that the world doesn't operate on instant download speeds. Packages don't teleport. Sometimes they're just on a truck somewhere. And no, you can't get it today. People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint. It's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. And our last story. I deserve that apartment. You stole it. My mom has 3 siblings, 2 reasonable ones and 1 full-blown entitled sister. Let's call her Mary. Mary's always been the family victim, at least in her mind. Back when this story took place, she was in her late 40s, married with 1 son, my cousin. Her husband was a disaster, a heavy drinker who couldn't hold down a job and constantly dragged their finances into chaos. Instead of leaving him, Mary clung to the Devoted Christian Wife Act. She claimed divorce was against her faith, but everyone knew it wasn't religion keeping her there, it was money. My grandparents were old-fashioned and didn't believe in divorce, and more importantly, they were supporting her financially. If she left him, the money would stop. So she stayed, and milked them for years. They paid her rent, bailed her out of her husband's debts, and bought her groceries, or so they thought. My grandma later told my mom that Mary would call crying about having no food for the baby, only for them to find out she'd used the money to pay off her husband's bar tabs. My grandpa, even in retirement, took on side jobs just to help her. Every time they tried to set boundaries, Mary guilted them back into giving more. Eventually, her husband sobered up, things stabilized, and instead of getting smart about money, they decided to build a massive 2-story dream house. It was far beyond their budget. Mary started working abroad for extra income while her husband oversaw construction, though oversaw is generous since most of it was endless loans and half-finished projects. Around that time, my grandparents decided to downsize and sell their old family home, the ones they'd built with their own hands decades ago. They offered it to all 4 kids, starting with Mary, since she was the oldest. She declined, bragging that she was already building something better. My mom and dad were the only ones interested, so they bought it. To keep things fair, my grandparents split the sale money into 4 equal shares. My mom's share was covered by the discount on the house, while each of her siblings got their portion in cash. It was a significant sum, enough to buy most of a small apartment in the city. One sibling invested wisely, another bought a flat outright. Mary, of course, dumped every cent into the bottomless pit that was her construction project. Then came the loans, and more loans to pay off the previous ones. By the time my grandpa passed away, Mary and her husband were drowning in debt, sitting on a half-finished house and multiple mortgages. A few months after the funeral, the family gathered at Mary's place for my cousin's birthday. My dad couldn't come, so it was just me and my mom. At first, things seemed fine. Small talk, food, polite conversation. But as the night went on and the wine started flowing, I could see the shift in Mary's expression. Once my grandma left, she always went home early. Mary started complaining about her mortgage, saying the interest was unbearable. My mom just listened, not wanting to get drawn in. Then, out of nowhere, Mary turned and glared at her. "This is all your fault," she said. My mom blinked. "What?" Mary slammed her glass down. "You bought the family house. You should have bought me an apartment. If you had, I wouldn't be in this mess." My mom laughed, thinking it was a joke. But Mary's face was dead serious. "You're serious?" my mom asked. "Of course I'm serious. You knew we were struggling. You could have helped. You owe me that apartment." That's when my mom's patience snapped. "Mary, you got your share. You could have bought an apartment like everyone else. You chose to build this giant house. That's not my fault." Mary screamed, "I deserve that apartment. Grandpa wanted me to have the house. You stole it." My mom stood up. "Don't you dare bring Dad into this. He offered you the house first. You said no, and Mom confirmed he never said anything like that." Mary's face twisted. "You're lying. You've always been jealous. You think you're better than me with your stupid house and perfect life." The table went silent. Her husband stared at his plate. My cousin looked mortified. My mom took a deep breath and said quietly, "You're not angry at me, Mary. You're angry at your own choices." Then she walked out. We left immediately. The drive home was silent until my mom finally said, "I don't even recognize her anymore." When we told my dad later, he was livid. "She waited until I wasn't there to pull that stunt," he said. "She's not welcome in our house ever again." And that was it. We cut contact. No visits, no holidays, no calls. My grandma still talks to her occasionally, but even she's done giving money. Last I heard, the dream house is still half finished, just like Mary's sense of accountability. That moment when your mom said, "You're not angry at me, you're angry at your own choices," that's the verbal equivalent of unplugging the karaoke machine mid-drunken rant. I bet even the cousin's cake stopped sweating for a second. If I were OP, I'd have been proud as hell of my mom, walking out calmly instead of throwing hands. That's restraint few of us possess. Personally, I'd have been tempted to say, "Sure, Mary, let me buy you an apartment in Monopoly money, since that's the only financial world you seem to live in." Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.